23, 22, 21.
Let's show them our faces here. Welcome, folks. I'm your host, Devahntau Colonel, and excited to be joining you on another episode of the Inspired Challenge podcast. On this episode, it's a Friday, so you know what that means. We're going to be diving into the dating talk. Also, sorry if I left the countdown timer a little bit too long there. Got a little bit of a lag on the production side here, my part. On this episode, we are joined by a gentleman with a beard of the highest stature, with the skills and all of the cool of the 60s. And so, with a man cultured in things dating wise, video game wise, marriage wise, in the spirit of the Lord, I would like to introduce Mr. Noah Asher.
I'm just happy to be here.
And definitely glad to have you, Noah. Definitely glad to have you. So, Noah, please introduce to the audience yourself, telling everybody what is your age, what do you do for occupation, for hobbies, and your relationship status.
Yeah. Well, hello, audience. I am Noah, as I've been introduced. I am 30 years old, and I am married. I work as a project manager for a large tool and hardware distributor, and I work in tech there as a tech project manager. And for my hobbies, I I play a lot of Fortnite. I'm also really into Formula One, and I do some Formula One sim racing as well, which is a lot of fun. I've got a group that through Discord that I do that with, and yeah, that's just a little bit about me. I'm sure we'll learn more though.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we jump into the conversation, everybody, like I said, thank you for joining along, and make sure that if you're watching this on the playback side, that you come in, give a like, leave a comment with any thoughts that you may have, any questions that may come up, and definitely follow along on Instagram at Inspired Challenge Podcast, also on TikTok on Inspired Challenge Podcast. Been on a little bit of a hiatus from those platforms, but coming back to it very soon. So be ready for the clips that'll be coming out in there. Thanks to my amazing editor that I've got. It should be, we'll be putting out some good stuff very, very soon here. So be sure to follow along on those platforms as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. My man, Noah, set us up with where you grew up in, how you came up.
Yeah. So I'm Florida born and raised. I was actually born in Longwood, which is not too far from here. And I lived in the area until I was about 10. Went to Lake Mary Prep. Just kind of grew up around here. And then my parents split when I was 10 and ended up moving like 200 miles south with my mom to the Treasure Coast, Port St. Lucie area. Lived there until I was like 17, moved to Melbourne for a few years, moved back to Orlando, lived in DC. I've been all over the place, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But yeah, kind of all over Florida. And, I had a pretty happy, first half of my childhood. I got a lot of good memories from back then. And then my parents split, and then the hurricanes that came through Orlando kind of happened right around the same time. And so like that is a pretty like pivotal moment because like my childhood home like was destroyed in that hurricane, and then like my family was also like falling apart at that same time.
Oh, man.
And there's just so much like in there that to unpack of like just how I don't even know what the word for it is. It's not ironic, but it said all that was happening. And yeah, and then I moved to a complete new environment, and I wouldn't say I was as happy in like the second half of my childhood.
Interesting.
I dealt with the time what felt like my a step parent who really didn't like me that much and like just didn't enjoy having me around. Which I mean, I've got a better relationship with them now, but definitely didn't like feel, you know, that same level of, childhood joy. I grew up really quick at that point. And then yeah, and then I lived with my grandparents for a year. My second half of my senior year, I moved to Melbourne. And so I finished high school at a different high school. And then graduated and wanted to go away to FSU, and just my family was like, no, we don't think you should do that. Even though I got in, and then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to the local community college. And then just while I was there, I hated it. I was in very gifted programs my entire childhood. All through school was in like the exceptional education programs and stuff like that. And I just had gotten completely burnt out from school. And so I went and I worked and tried to do work in school. And then I was like, I'm not really feeling this school thing, so I'm just gonna work. Um, and and just never finished. I just never went back. But yeah, and then I moved out pretty quickly at like when I was 18, I was out on my own. Uh, and stayed out on my own for until I was like 22, and then I came back home for a little while. But to a different home, not with my mom anymore. At that point, I'd moved in with my dad. But yeah, I took the hard knock journey of like career and like getting to financial stability. Uh, there was definitely like times in my life I was like selling plasma to like eat. And,
Relatable.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just like a little bit of my journey. There's definitely like trauma from my childhood and stuff like that, and a lot of not feeling super loved during periods of my childhood. But at the same point, like I look back on it and like there are qualities of that made me a stronger person today. And so, you got to go through trials and tribulations to grow.
All right, man. No, that's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah.
I've tried to get into the habit of taking notes when the guest is speaking and then coming in afterwards to ask questions.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I'm doing my best.
I'm an
here.
open book.
So you had mentioned that during the hurricane, that's when things started to really kind of pop. Like, what happened in there that was?
So, my parents were unhappy for a number of years. They hid it very well from me and their kid, but I was 10 and under, while they were having issues.
Right.
During the oh God, when was this? This was I was 10, so 2003, 2002. There was a downturn in my dad has worked in trucking his whole life.
Mhm.
Pretty much his whole life. And he was working for a freight liner called Consolidated Freightways, and they went under and completely bankrupt. Everybody just without a job overnight. They chained the doors closed, um, and he didn't recover from that really well. And ended up taking a job for like minimum wage. And that really put a strain on my parents' relationship and financially. I mean, I was in private school education.
Ooh.
They had to pay those bills and stuff. And like, so my mom was having to go to like her mom to ask for money to like put me through school and stuff like that because they didn't want to put me in private school and they didn't want to put me in public school. And I think my mom, at that point, they'd been married for 12 years and was just starting to realize that maybe this wasn't her lifelong partner, which is, it's hard to think about, but I just think that I mean, after I would say probably after 10, 12 years, like things you kind of have to start realizing is what I'm working with now something I'm willing to have with me for the rest of my life.
Right.
Like, that is that something I can deal with? And so um they just came to the agreement that no, that they weren't right for each other. And yeah, it was a weird. I remember the moment they told me they were getting divorced, just vivid. Like I can put myself in that moment, sitting on the floor in the living room, my parents sitting there, telling me that my father wasn't going to sleep in the same room as my mom anymore, and that they weren't going to be together anymore, and that they were splitting up. Like I can see it clear as day that moment. Um, so I mean, obviously, it had a profound impact on me. Uh,
Yeah, for sure. Have you heard of that stat that it says the impact of divorce has a greater psychological, as far as immediacy, the impact is um, a stronger impact than having a family member die.
Well, because it's you're as a child you're witnessing that relationships it's the breaking of the paradigm that marriage is forever,
Right.
that your parents are together forever, that your parents are soulmate. It breaks that, and I think that breaks something inside of you,
Hmm.
because prior to that you have that childlike innocence of my parents are soulmates, my parents are perfect for each other, I have a perfect family.
Hmm.
And then once that breaks, I mean, you don't have the security that you had before. Like
Right.
at a, you know, subconscious level, like at a caveman level,
Hmm.
as a child, your parents are security, your parents are shelter, your parents are sustenance, your parents are love. And now you've lost half of that group. Like,
Right.
well, or
Been
they're not together.
fractured in
Exactly. It's
this.
fractured. It's broken.
Hmm.
It's going to mess you up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think divorce is one of the horrible things that happens to children. One of the most traumatic things you can experience.
Hmm.
I think nobody's happy in a divorce.
Yeah.
Nobody's happy.
Especially not as it's happening and
Yeah.
all the things that can happen along the path, like ironing out the details of like who gets what, all of it. Yeah. So now, as you had mentioned in your college years, you kind of went in there and you did that for a while. What did those years look like before you decided, this is not really?
Um. Yeah. So
And
Uh.
you lived on your own at 18.
Yeah. So I graduated at 17. So
Hmm.
my first year of college, I'm trying to think about how to explain this. Well, first off, I have severe ADHD.
Mm.
I mean, at 30, I've gotten pretty good about coping and alternative medications and things like that to slow my brain down. The way I explain ADHD is like it's loud. It's just very loud in your head because there's 100 thoughts happening at the same time. And if you really want somebody with ADHD to feel relief, you need to quiet the inside of their head. You have to slow it down because that's the problem is that my brain is just sprinting constantly and it's so tiring because of its sprinting it can't focus on little things. It's got to focus on the biggest thing in front of it at that moment. um So I'm pulling us off topic.
No, that's a good breakdown, I think, because I think a lot of people, they wonder like, man, why can't I focus on this thing? Like people don't know how to interact with it. So I think it's something that
Yeah,
speak to is
and I
good.
think a lot of people like I jokingly be like, "Oh, I'm so ADHD," when actually dealing with ADHD, it can feel like suffering from ADHD kind of thing. Like it's something that is a real pain sometimes. I mean, even just the fact of okay, I sit down somewhere, I realize I left my phone out there. Okay, I got to get up and go get my phone. All right, get up and go get my phone. Come back, sit down. I realized the thing that I was holding in my hand, I no longer have, but I have my phone. Okay, get up, get up, look around. Where's the thing that I had? Get up. Oh, it's where I went and picked up my phone. Go get my phone. I go get the thing, come back. I no longer have my phone.
I may be ADHD. Like truly, I lose things at least twice a day, probably.
I hear about your ring that it just disappears. Um, so I'm sorry that we were talking about college. So, um, I was not prepared for college. I was not raised in a way to prepare myself to live on my own, to prepare myself to have self-discipline, to get work done, to not procrastinate. Um, I just I wasn't really allowed to fall on my face. And so when I got to college, I fell on my face hard.
Interesting. So a little bit of self admission of like maybe being over coddled a bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, a story of being overcaught when I was born. I was, a little jaundiced, and so they told my mom, just put him in the sunlight. The vitamin D and stuff will help to. He just needs vitamin D. That's
right.
Well, she brought me home and put me in the sunlight, but she bundled me up so tight that none of my skin was showing to get sunlight. And so they had to take me back to the hospital because I didn't stop jaundicing. And my mom would never let me go barefoot. I always had to be wearing socks because what if my feet get cold? And no, so very much. I mean, I love my mother to death. She's one of my favorite people, but for sure I was babied. So I wasn't really prepared for the reality of the world. Also, I didn't have the same support systems I had when I was in public education. I felt or know how to access those resources, I guess. And I was also very burnt out from school. I was in the IB program. I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah. So I was in IB throughout all of high school. And I actually had to switch schools because I failed a class and therefore was kicked out of the IB program. But because of the way the IB program is set up, there are specific courses that Florida education requires, but if you're in the IB program, you're exempted from them. So therefore, and also I was at a magnet school. The only reason I was able to attend that school is because I was part of the IB program. Since I'm no longer part of the IB program, I'm no longer allowed to attend that school. So I was basically kicked out of the school. And at that point, I was very, very unhappy at home. So I said, I'm going to go move in with my dad and go to Orlando. I toured Boone High.
Oh, yes.
And I really was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. I'll finish school here. And then I was told, no, you're going to go move in with your grandma. I was just told. And so,
plot twist. Wow.
Yeah. And so wound up finishing out at Palm Bay High.
Hey, I went there too.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man.
Palm Bay High class of 2011. What's up?
It's 2011?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I didn't graduate at Palm Bay. I graduated in 2012 from my class.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, it was, I wasn't was exiting a unhappy childhood and an unhappy situation. I was experiencing freedom for the first time. I was burnt out from education. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was sick and tired of all the work. And I used to say, why am I going to pay to sit somewhere when I can get paid to sit somewhere?
Yeah.
And so I just started working. I went and I got a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Well, before that, I was working at the movie theater. When I got a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, we were working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, making decent money. Moved out, got into rented a house with two other guys. Went horribly. Was eating like 3 packs of ramen noodles at one time.
Oh man.
Oh, I gained so much weight. And I wasn't taking my medication anymore. So prior to that, I was medicated from 3rd grade. So I guess that's 8 years old, 9 years old, something like that.
Yeah, 8 years old. Yeah.
Until I graduated from high school. So I was on medications that whole time and on very high doses of ADHD medications. And I just was, I didn't feel like the person I was on those high doses of medication was who I really was. Because I'm a funny, goofy guy. I just wasn't that when I was on those medications. So I got off of it and I stopped taking them. And I was living on my own, and it just, college wasn't the place for me at that point in my life, and it hasn't been to date. Not for lack of not wanting to go back. I've thought about it a few times. I've tried once or twice, and it's just I've gotten to a point in my life that I don't know how much I need university schooling anymore. And my career experience at this point provides a lot more resource to me than any university education.
Yeah, especially at the price point that they're doing. The value now is definitely so much less than maybe it was like 30 years ago.
I think it's $100 a credit hour right now
and that's in-state tuition
at Valencia. And then
God forbid you're an out-of-state tuition, and then that you're at a university, and then you're at a private university. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's funny, when I was graduating from high school, I also applied to Notre Dame, because I had a dream of oh, maybe I'll go to Notre Dame. And then seeing the tuition cost back then it was $30,000 a year. I think it's 90 now.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's almost full sale prices.
Yeah, exactly.
So when at what point in your adult life did you start to delve into the dating world in that scene?
Well, was
dating something you did throughout your school career, or did you not really indulge in that?
I didn't really have any girlfriends. I was not a cool kid.
Yeah.
No, I was very dorky, nerdy, weird kid. Was not really liked by girls. And I was also the youngest in my class every year. And yeah, I just never really had luck with the ladies.
So K through 12 was a little bit of a wash for you.
Yeah, I mean, I had my first girlfriend in 3rd or 4th grade, Savannah Lowe. We kissed. She was also my first kiss. We kissed on the trampoline in my backyard. Yeah. And yeah, it's so funny that I remember my first girlfriend's name perfectly. I remember her, and just that one period in my life. I also went through a thing when I was in elementary school where the back in the AIM days, made a fake, I got catfished basically.
Not just me, huh?
No, yeah. So when I was 9, 10, I got catfished by these 3 girls at school, just as a prank.
Dang,
Yeah,
that
and
sucks.
yeah, no, it was absolutely devastating, heart-ripping stuff.
I've been catfished about 3 times in my life. One of them 3 times, maybe even a fourth time. Technically 3.5. One of them was using a profile from someone I actually went to middle school with. So I actually knew this girl. I'd talked to her in person, all that jazz. It might have even been, she might have actually been the real girl, but she just changed over time. And
Yeah.
like, oh, I need some help. Can you send me some money? And I'm like, oh, I don't know you like that, but you know what? Like, you're like, her mom was DMing me
Oh, wow.
and all that jazz. So like, I'm talking to classmate and the mom, and I'm like, oh, I guess they really are going through some hard times right now. So I send some money, and then I see the page, and like they're always like posting stuff. Oh, can anybody send some money? Da, da, da. I'm like, oh, this is just their hustle. Like,
Yeah.
what the heck?
Yeah, so no, that's I mean, I'm sure that had a profound impact on me that I've never really taken the time to unpack. But uh I mean, I had one girlfriend in middle school that like we dated for like 2 weeks. She was from Ireland. I remember that. And then she broke up with me for another kid in my class.
No.
Yeah, and it was like this kid I hated so much.
So what you're saying is she belongs to the streets.
Yeah, exactly. Now, and then in high school, I mean, I was kind of on again, off again with like some longer distance people. Like there was like a girl who I'd met on a cruise that like we went on as a family that I got like really close with, but like she lived in Nebraska.
Oh man.
But like we would talk every night, like almost, I mean, as close as you can get to a long distance relationship as that kind of like kid. I mean, because I was 15 maybe.
You guys
So
provided emotional comfort for each
exactly.
other.
It was like, you know, girl best friend, like, but like a step
right.
above. Yeah. And then there was another girl that I was, you know, kind of long distance with that lived down in South Florida, like further south than where I lived at the time, like West Palm, like past West Palm, closer to Miami. And we were on and off from like,
Oh, you said Miami, so that was once you lived to go to live with your father then.
No. So my dad lived in Orlando. This was when I was living with my mom and my stepdad.
Oh, okay. They
lived in Port
Miami.
St. Lucie,
Oh, Port
which
St.
is
Lucie, that's
like
right.
3 hours north of Miami.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So it's like, I would say it's probably smack dab between here and Miami.
Okay.
Smack dab in the middle. So yeah, I had somebody that I was like on and off with from like 16 to like 20. But like it was somebody that I was like really close with as a friend, but it was like always a little bit more. And kind of like, yeah. And honestly, like looking back, like a horrible, horrible situation that I never should have ever been involved in.
Why was it horrible? What made it horrible?
We were both, you know, underage, and, you know, we were very, you know, sexual with each other, but like through text and things like that back in the, I mean, because I think about, we're talking back in 9, 10,
Oh
in
yeah.
2011, like that was all the rage back then. And this is like before we had like an iPhone. This is before Siri. So like
Man.
and so we're, and
I don't think phones back then could really receive pictures, right? Like you had to send them through AIM, or you had to send email it.
No, I had a pic. I mean, they weren't high quality pictures by any means. It was like a 3 megapixel camera on the back of your phone. But I remember I got my phone taken away at school.
Oh
and
no.
I'm on my way home, and I get home, and my mom has gone through my phone and found the messages that this girl and I are sending back and forth. She called the phone. The girl's dad picked up. My mom and her dad talked and went through everything that has been happening. And I thought that my world exploded in like a moment. Also, I don't get where my mom came up with that. Why would you do that? Like, okay, yes, unhealthy. We were way too young to be doing that stuff. I mean, I was freshman. So like, and she was like an eighth grade or seventh grade or something. Like it was
Mm.
no way that any of that should have ever been happening. And like looking at like middle schoolers today, I'm just like, oh, sweet baby angel. Oh no, no, don't be thinking these
Oh
things.
man.
Oh, where is this coming from? Because like I don't even know that we've gone into it. Like I was exposed to corn at a very young age.
Mm.
Like 10, I found it for the first time. Like, or maybe no, it might have been younger. It might have been like 8.
8. Yeah, that seems.
When I was 8, yeah, I found corn for the first time
Mm.
and like had to have the talk about like all of that with my
Yeah.
dad at like 8 years
Mhm.
old, which I look back at that like as somebody who's like approaching fatherhood of I do not want to have that conversation with my 8-year-old. Like that is less than ideal. Um Yeah, and so that's always kind of I think probably being exposed to it that young,
Mhm.
I've had a lot more time to like live with sexuality and like the
Right.
realities of the world's reality
Mhm.
of sexuality
Yeah.
and uh the corn industry and what they put out there.
Oh yeah.
Um
So this is something interesting that because um as you mentioned, like your parents wanted you to go to a certain kind of school
yeah.
in order to be able to keep you in a certain sphere of influence.
Well,
How
I will say one of the other reasons was they felt like I was ready for school, but the school wouldn't. They were going to, because my birthday's in October,
Mhm.
they were like, sorry, he's got to wait. He's got to wait till the next year. And they were like, he can't wait another year. Like he's ready for school now.
Yeah.
So they initially put me into a private school. And I think that's part of the reason why they kept it that way. But yes, also, the sheltering environment was a plus. I didn't hear kids curse until I went away to a sleepaway camp for the first time. Like I was like, oh my gosh, what are you guys? You're using curse words. But yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your point.
So in that place, even though they did that to kind of shelter you from certain things, but you still at the age of 8 years old still found your first exposure,
Yeah.
and that was not from a school incident. Like, how did that even come about for
Well,
you
I
guys?
had always I was a very curious child. Um,
Yeah.
like my parents had visual encyclopedias and stuff like that. And like I I mean, my parents didn't like hide sex like but it wasn't talked about. Like it's not like something
Mm.
like that. But like I think I saw my first pair of boobs in a movie at like probably 6 or 7. And
Mm.
my dad talks about taking me through Dillard's when I was like 3 or 4 in the like through the lingerie section, and my eyes just lighting up and looking all over the place. And what's funny, he says at that moment he knew I wasn't gay. Like we were good. He didn't. Which I mean, back then he like literally said he's like I knew we were good. And you can't say that anymore. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
he knew that wasn't a bridge he was going to have to cross. But yeah, so I was always very curious. I mean, I remember.
Which now that you mention it, I never thought about it. Like usually lingerie is it's either black or it's like very bright, vibrant, like pink, red, yellow, very
Yeah.
like interesting to kid type colors and very bright, not the like darker
You ever
tones.
wonder why they have a specific lingerie entrance at these like I've never understood that. Like, why is like lingerie front and forward like
Right.
at these entrances of which like I'm not saying like oh shame hide your neck like hide your undergarments, but it's just
Right.
interesting to me that there's
Yeah.
like it's very front and forward of like oh we sell lingerie, oh sexy. But yeah, so like I remember like opening the like visual encyclopedia and like them having the image of the boy and the girl, like the
Mhm.
man and the woman next to each other, and like looking at like, oh, what? There's nothing there between the legs. Oh, interesting. Like, and like I
Ah.
was just very curious, and so I think I probably first stumbled into that world by just like Googling sex or like sex.com. Like,
You know what's crazy?
what?
That's exactly how I got started. And similar to, I mean, I for me it happened. My brother and I were watching. I forget what it was. Some movie that had like Queen Latifah and like a Spanish actress. She's still popular today. I want to say like Sofia Vergara or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And um, a female cop was feeling up a female cop, and then afterwards, they had mentioned something about like a period, and I'm
Mhm.
like, what is a period? Or I asked my stepmom that because she's a woman. She's like, I'm gonna let your father handle
Yeah.
that. And then he's like, we'll talk about that when you're older.
Yeah.
And
So
then
then what do
same
you
as
do? You
you.
go and look it up.
Exactly. You go
Yeah.
and you Google and you're like, yeah, these things.
Yeah, and then they say like, yeah, they're sexual organs, and you Google what sexual organs, and then
Oh
and now
yeah.
we're entering a whole world.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, no, I Google was probably definitely Wayne was my introduction to that world of just like
Mm-hmm.
Googling sex and like here we go, and then suddenly you're down the rabbit hole. You found your
Yeah.
site, you found your, and then
Yep.
suddenly you got pictures and videos, and it's just all I have to do is click that I'm 18. Sure, why not? 18, 18,
Yeah, it's
18,
so
18.
easy. There's no
No
verification process at
verification,
all. No
nothing.
ID presentation. No,
I do
nothing.
remember also growing up like and the sites would be like input your credit card information to verify your age. And then like being like, I don't have a credit card. I'm under 18. Oh geez. So
That's
yeah,
funny.
that definitely I keep saying definitely probably that probably uh has had an impact on my dating experiences to where uh, when I was older in well, actually, no, I guess that's not even true because high school senior year, I ended up dating a girl the last half of my senior year. And she ended up breaking off because I wanted to be too physical all the time. Well,
Oh,
she was a church girl.
hey, good for her.
Yeah, exactly.
Parents did her
As
right,
she
huh?
should have.
Hey,
As she should have.
at the time, I'm sure you were probably like, "Hi,
Yeah, I was like,
rude.
yeah,
What's wrong with
whatever,
you?"
man.
Yeah.
Just
Which
expressing myself.
and funny on that, like the word prude. There was one time I was dating a girl and like she was super excited to get with me. And
Yeah.
then once we actually started dating, this was in like seventh grade, and we got together and she broke up with me the next day. She's like, yeah, you're too prude. We've been dating for like a whole day and you haven't even tried to kiss me.
Women. Yeah, so like once I was living on my own, I think I started to experience a little bit more freedom in my dating of defining it as dating.
Mm.
And definitely had a lot of situationships
Oh, right. A
and
very common word now.
and friends with benefits and things like that over the years. Um yeah. Go
So
ahead.
a question with that. So when I find it very interesting to hear how people talk about situationships because usually it can stem from one of two things. Either one person really wants a relationship and the other person is just not ready, or both people are genuinely like, we like each other, but we also want to have the ability to explore and kind of do what we want to do. So, like, how did you find yourself in that? What was a
Well,
lot of those setups?
I was on either side. There were well, so I mean, I did date a little bit in college. I had a girl that I was with for uh like a little over a year. Well, I say in college, in my college years, like near I mean the latter age of my college years, so like
Okay, like
2021.
right.
I had a girlfriend for a while that I lived with for a little while and all that. But
Wow, it got really serious there. Y'all were living together, huh?
it was just easier.
Fair share,
Um,
right?
and then I definitely had like there was a girl when I lived in Orlando who very much wanted to be with me. And I only enjoyed the physical aspects of our relationship.
Oh.
I wasn't really that into her personality. I wasn't really that. I was just, how else to put it, looking for somewhere to call home sometimes.
Was she like a 8 on the outside and like a 4 on the inside, kind of?
No, I I don't want to be mean, so I'm gonna choose
Fair.
to be nice here. I was not significantly attracted to her, but that wasn't really my main focus.
Okay.
Like I didn't have to be. She was available, and that was what was most important to me at that moment in my life. Whereas she very much enjoyed me. She wanted a relationship. She didn't like what was going on. And I just, every time we would get together, I have to be like, you know, that this isn't going anywhere. You know, that this isn't. And after a while, thank God she started to respect herself more and
Right.
decided
Good.
that
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't a good thing for her to continue to see me and talk to me, and good for her. I'm glad that she did that. But then like when I was living in DC, I was with a girl for a while who I very much wanted to be in a relationship with. I very much, and like we were hooking up and we talked all the time. We were really good friends, and always I'd be like, what, can we just date? Like, please, like, I just like, will you date me? Let's make this more, and never wanted to do that. And then I got to a point where I was like, all right, well, um, I wanted more out of this. It's obvious you don't. I'm leaving town soon. So like, I'm sorry, but like, I can't like do this anymore. So I'm just going to stop talking to you.
Yeah.
And then suddenly she's like, oh no, but I love you. Like, I want to be with, and I was like, oh, well, you waited a little while too long on that one. So,
Wow. She's like, wait, I'm going to lose all my benefits. No.
So, I would say though, I don't think dating before you're in college is worth it at all.
I would agree with that.
I don't think there's
It's
any
like
value.
the dumbest thing possible. Like,
Yeah, because it's not going to do anything really good for you, and you're just going to get hurt because, like, I'm sorry, you might think you're going to end up together in the end, like, especially in middle school. I guarantee you're not going to end up together. Guarantee. And then like high school, like recognize that, like, drop your main character syndrome. Like, you are not the main character of a love story. You're a normal person, and 95% of the time, the high school sweetheart thing isn't going to happen. So just wait. If you guys are into each other, be friends, hang out. You know, if you're into each other, you'll still be into like, if it's meant to be, you'll still be into each other when it's appropriate for you to like dive into that. But
so on main character syndrome.
yeah.
So I remember distinctly, and you guys, I am telling you this so that you don't dare come close to repeating this mistake. And maybe you can empathize. So back when we were in middle school, maybe getting close, early high school even, a book series called Twilight was very popular.
It's my wife's favorite movie series.
How they're like mid at best. Anyways,
I hate it every time she turns on. I hear from the other room, and I go, son of a, oh, not again.
oh man. So with Twilight, I was such an introverted kid that I would go and read these books and I'd see the character traits of Edward Cullen and Jacob. And I'm like, okay, so, all these girls are swooning around, both of these guys, Team Edward, Team Jacob was developing. So I'm like, okay, so this is what girls like.
Yeah.
And then, wouldn't you know, I would try and emulate those personality
So
traits.
cringy.
It is so cringy, and it is like when you play it out as a real human being, you seem like a sociopath almost. So, guys, if you're reading a book and it has a love story in it, good God, do not try and emulate
It is
what
fiction.
those characters are
It
like.
is all fiction. Keep in mind, it is a work of fiction. The women are all right. So you got to keep this in mind. Women are approaching these books with open because they're safe.
Mm-hmm.
Women do not approach men open because they are not safe.
That's such a good point. That's a great point.
So you know how all these women read these smut books with like, whips and chains and all of this stuff. It's because they're safe in that environment. They don't have to worry about anything bad happening because if they start to not feel safe, all they have to do is close the book.
Facts.
If you, as a man, go up and talk to a woman the way that Christian Grey talks to a woman in 50 Shades of Grey, she's going to call the police. And if she doesn't, there's some serious baggage involved that probably needs to be unpacked before any relationship gets started.
What?
There's some very serious trauma in her past that needs to be unpacked. But yeah, because women are so in their head. They're everything. Men are. I said constantly, men are very visual. Men are not very imagination oriented. Most of them, I would say, where a woman can lose herself in her imagination. She can open up completely. She can be completely safe there and experience things, because women can experience things, I feel, emotionally, internally, without having to physically experience it and feel the same result.
Which is also like, when it comes to attraction, that's why, like, one of the greatest things to do attraction wise is not to constantly be on top of a woman trying to make attraction triggers happen. It's to do something that is great, but then immediately back off and disappear. Let her imagination take over. Why did he do this amazing thing? Like, no explanation behind it. Like, am I going to see him again? Allowing the imagination to handle the attraction point is like the key.
And I will say probably one of the, so I will freely admit I was not a good man to women. I have admitted this to my wife. I was a bad man. I was a player. I was whatever words you want to come up with that women use to talk about. I was a scrub. I was, whatever words you want to use. That's exactly who I was for a period of my life. Probably from like 21 to like 23. And I went through my hoe phase.
Yeah.
And one of the worst things that ever happened to me, I feel like, is I read a book, and I'm not even going to plug it here because I don't want people to read it.
Thank you.
But it was basically a how to pick up women book. But it was a very, it was exposition storytelling, like very well written and very well working book about, how to pick up women, the female psyche, how it works, how, women are all actually competing with each other, whether they're willing to admit it or not. Right. And it was so horrible. Probably one of the worst things that happened, because it taught me so much. And then also my hoe phase started right around when Tinder launched.
Wow. Well, you were one of the benefactors.
Yeah.
Huh?
So like, I used Tinder, I used Bumble, I used Hinge, I used Coffee Meets Bagel, I used everything.
Never even heard of that last one.
Yeah. See? Because this was 2015 to 2018, I guess.
Okay.
Probably around there. And yeah, so that's like when that stuff was just popping off. I remember sitting with Tinder open and just right swiping, not looking. Just swipe every single one, because laws of probability, somebody's going to like me.
That's how guys play the game.
Exactly. Just go through all of them. Law of probability. I'm going to get a match. And what I care about is that she's living and alive and a real person that I can sleep with.
Yeah.
And that's how I lived in that period of my life.
It's an ugly truth, but it is the truth for like 80% of guys right now.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
ladies, you got to make them try a little bit. Um, but yeah, so like that's where I went through like a lot of also like self-loathing.
Yep.
Just because getting a text from a girl saying you gave me gonorrhea and being like, what?
I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, and exactly. And just being like, excuse me? I did what? And then being like, all right, well, let me go get tested. And then being like, no, I didn't. I don't know where you got the gonorrhea.
Yikes.
And then, but just being in a situation where I have to,
Defend yourself.
oh yeah.
And where it could be you.
And then like I'll be open of like I had an experience where I got a girl pregnant.
Hmm.
And like that, like I still think about that all the time. Handled without my knowledge of like what is finding out
Oh.
after being told, hey, by the way, you got me pregnant. Don't worry, I took care of it. And just like it just getting that text, well, this was from a situationship. This was a girl that I was in a situationship with who who I did like. Like I liked her, but I didn't see a future with her. Like she wasn't gonna be my wife. I was like, this is not like, but I
If
enjoy
she had,
hanging out with you. I enjoy sleeping with you.
if she had brought that to you, do
I
you
would
think
have gosh, let's see, that was 2015. So I would have, or
like
2016, I would have a
7 years old
yeah,
by now?
7 year old. Yeah, absolutely. I would have, I, I, I view abortion as a governmental necessary evil.
Hmm.
Like I'm never going to tell, I'm not going to be the person to protest outside the abortion
Hmm.
hall. I'm not going to be the person to vote against abortion, to be honest.
Hmm.
I hate it personally.
Hmm.
I I hate that it happened to me. That like this is something that I have to deal with, that I have to think about every day. Um, but until we can truly support the children that are being born, and like I feel like it's like I feel like we are currently pro life until birth, and then after they're born, we don't really care for the children anymore.
Yeah, I can say that I would probably agree with that. Like, it's like every child deserves a right to live, and then once the child is born, it's very like, okay, now take care of the child.
Like, or
Like,
if you want to get rid of abortion, it needs to be free to have a child. Like, you need to, there needs to be no cost involved with being pregnant.
mhm.
Everything needs to be covered up through childbirth for every person. I feel like if you're not going to allow abortion.
What I've told people is if I was to be president and I was going to tackle an issue and it was going to be abortion, I would outlaw it, but I would only do it after I made birth care and everything that comes in that free. Set up a system where there's free childcare for
Yeah.
everyone to have, and made it to where um, parents, especially young parents, had like they were engaged, plugged into like whether it's like church or
Support
volunteer
networks.
works, like very community based things. So like there would like I would mandate all of these structures,
Yeah.
and then I would ban it outright.
Well, exactly, because at that point, there's no reason for it. I think, I'm going to pull us off topic here. I think at a certain point, you're not going to be able to justify abortion because we're going to have artificial wombs,
Mm.
and we're going to be able to just transplant a baby into an artificial womb. That's the future I see coming. And at that point, literally, there's no excuse for abortion anymore.
All right.
But I mean, also, do we want to just be growing babies in pods? Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably has some kind of psychological effect that we're unaware of.
Oh, massively. Like
Um,
the whole attachment that goes from mother to child is like essentially removed
Isn't it
in there.
interesting that we don't let people take puppies under a certain number of weeks old, but we take babies instantly? from their mothers for adoption.
Huh. Oh wow. I never. Wow. Is that's a thing?
Yeah. So with puppies, you don't you're supposed to allow them like 3 weeks or so to like acclimate and like grow
Mm-hmm.
with their mother, and then they can sell them and stuff. But with babies, like if not to be uh not to condemn or shame anybody, this is just a reality of the practice.
Mm-hmm.
If a non heterosexual couple adopts a baby,
Mm-hmm.
a male couple adopts a baby, the baby's with them from birth. They don't. There's no with the
Yeah.
mother. You don't get that, and there's like a whole hormonal thing that a baby gets from being with its mother and stuff like that.
Right.
That like I don't know that I trust you can get the same kind of results with a male chest that you can from a female chest. And like this is nothing negative about being in a couple like that. Like I go for it. There's nothing wrong with adopting. I just think that if we're gonna have that, we need a decoupling period, a weaning,
Mm.
if you will.
Yeah.
It seems like it might be somewhat traumatic to, but I mean, I guess it's been happening for a long time, so it can't be that bad. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
It's like and it's a shifting, ever more shifting, like more commonly occurring
yeah,
thing. Um, so looking at like the culture as you understand it now, like, and we've kind of hinted at it, like certain things as far as middle school relationship, high school relationships. Um, Mostly naturally, you didn't have any relationships in high school.
correct.
Besides what, one or
Like
two?
no, yeah, like I had a real relationship the last semester of my senior year of high school, like, and then through that summer, and that was
Hmm.
like my last, I would say, excuse me, my last like high school relationship, but like really my only high school like
Yeah.
actual relationship. Yeah.
And in this time here, what where were you at in the process of your faith and as it was developing with you throughout these years?
We can get into the faith journey too. All right. So, important things to know. My father's Jewish.
Hmm.
My mother, I mean, I wasn't raised religious until I was 10. I mean, we celebrated Christmas and Hanukkah, and we actually went to synagogue more than we went to church. I don't think I went to church for like a service until after my parents got divorced.
Oh wow.
But like we would go to synagogue for Passover, we would go to synagogue for Rosh Hashanah and things like that. So I would
Mhm.
say I probably grew up more Jewish than Christian. And then when my parents split, my stepfather's Catholic.
Oh.
And so I was brought into the Catholic Church and was actually brought up in the Catholic Church from 11 till, well, until after, and you get your confirmation in ninth grade. So I did,
Hmm.
though I went through like a whole like course program with the Catholic Church to like learn about being Catholic to convert to Catholicism.
Oh wow.
It was it because like I was being raised Jewish and then suddenly taken to Catholicism, and it's like, oh yeah, this is just what we do now, and just having to be like, okay, cool, here we go. Hi God, you're Catholic. So did that, and then started like asking questions of like, why do I need an intermediary between myself and God?
Hmm.
Like, what is like, I'm meaning like, why do I need a priest here? Why
Right.
can't I just take my confession direct to God's ears? Like, why
A
it
good
just,
question. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I was confirmed Catholic. I spent uh pretty much every Sunday at the Catholic Church. I would and was very involved with youth group. Had a lot of friends from youth group. That's really where my main like friend group was. Um, and then when I moved to Melbourne, I was going to a Presbyterian church.
Okay.
Um, and so was very involved with like, the Calvinist idea. So
Ah.
in that time period, had a best friend. His name's Michael. We're no longer really friends. You want to talk about a relationship that hurt? That friendship ending was probably the most painful relationship breakup I've ever been through.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the catalyst of that? Because I think guys so much we like, especially like if we're in grade school, we like kind of we treat relationships with women and breakups with that as the big thing. But like, yeah, the loss of a brother can
Oh,
be
like
devastating.
legitimately, I loved him as if he was my true blood. Like we were brothers.
Mhm.
And so, well, let me say, like, I was not a kid with a lot of friends. I think I've talked about it. I wasn't popular. I was not a kid with a lot of friends. I can count on probably, yeah, on one hand, who I would say elementary through to like 20, who my friends were.
Mm.
My friend Jeffrey, he passed away uh 6 years ago now.
Mm.
My buddy Michael, who we're not talking anymore.
Mm.
Friends from high school who I don't talk to at all. I I'm not really a guy with a lot of friends. I don't really talk to people that much. I hang out with my wife
Mm.
and I do my work and I hang out at church, but like I'm not really a big friends guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I say that yet I had like 8 groomsmen. So because like there are guys who I am friends with, but not my best friends. Like
Mm.
I've only had like 3 or 4 best friends.
Right.
And I would say now my best friend is my wife.
Mhm.
And then like male best friend is my dad.
Mm.
But he and I met when I was 17 after I moved to Melbourne, Michael. And I would just hang out. Like so he was the intern at the church. And like so his thing was like he used to just be able to say that he was hanging out with me as like what his thing was that he was doing that day to like
Mhm.
record his hours. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, Noah and I are gonna go to the beach and go surfing. Like I'm just
Mm.
gonna go hang out with him and spend time with him and like pour into him." And it was great. He like really brought me really closer, a lot closer to the Lord. I grew a lot through that relationship. It was a very God driven relationship.
Mm.
Since that's like where our relationship formed at first. Went to Passion with him.
Wow.
It was Passion 2011. Passion. Well, I guess I don't know. Is it 2011 or 2012? Because it's like New Year's.
They always
Yeah.
confuse me. Yeah.
So, yeah. But then he got sick. And it really like wreaked havoc on his body. Like he was a firefighter. He was super driven, and then suddenly like he could like barely even walk. Like, so he
Mm.
has Lyme disease, I know for sure. And then like some other genetic disorders that like affect how his body's able to process toxins and things like that. And because of that, he like went really into isolation for a while.
Mm.
And didn't really hang out with people, talk to people. All he did was read his Bible.
Mm.
But he read his Bible in what I would call, what do you call that? Like
Echo chamber?
yes, perfect word. Thank you.
Oh.
Echo chamber. So he it kind of became very fundamental
Mm.
Christian.
Mhm.
And like to the point like I introduced him to Morgan. And like when we were getting ready to head over there, like one of the things he texted me is like, "Are you guys staying pure? Because like I can't support this marriage if you guys aren't pure." And I was just like, one, what does it matter to you?
Mhm.
Like this should have no like I'm not asking for your blessing. Like you're
Mhm.
not my parent, you're not her like I'm not asking for your blessing. I want you to be involved because you're supposed to be my best friend.
Mhm.
And like it just felt very out of pocket like thing to say.
Yeah.
Um and so then it just became more and more clear that he wasn't the same person that he was. Like I invited him to my wedding and he just didn't even come.
Wow.
No explanation, no nothing. Just didn't even show up.
Mm.
And he was somebody who, because they'd been so pivotal in my understanding of Christianity and actually diving into it and getting to the meat of what Christianity is, that it kind of, I had him on this pedestal,
Mm,
and
yeah.
it kind of shattered that, and it really hurt me from a church mindset as well, because all of my biggest moments in the church were with this person
Yeah.
and experiencing it with them. And honestly, losing that relationship, like it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because I'm I'm choosing to love my wife, and knowing that this person is kind of hurting her by the way that they react towards her, and also realizing that this like friendship is dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a whole thing. I don't know where we jumped off from to get to
No,
that.
well, no, that was, I mean, it was a good point, I think, because it goes to show just how a simple thing of disagreement can really affect like this closest level of male relationship. And like one of the biggest issue I think that guys find is that they spend so much of their life seeking how to attract women, and then they neglect having male friends, and then they become all kinds of level of, like as you mentioned, self-loathing and things like that. And then like how important it is to have at least a guy or a couple of guys that you can go to. And like that's one of the biggest things I talk about here on the podcast is like have your set of guys, have your community, be involved, be accountable
Oh,
to
for
those
sure.
guys.
For sure. And like we had tried to be accountability partners before, and it was like one of those things where uh, we never listened to each other. So we would just make each other upset by like being accountable, because like if you're not going to listen to me, I'm not going to say anything. Like, why am I
Yeah.
going to continue to, like, we're just not going to listen to each other. We probably shouldn't be accountability partners.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, it was interesting. But I will say, like, my dad is my best friend.
Hmm.
Um, if I am lucky, I will get to be half the man, the father my dad is.
Mm.
Um, just very, he cares. It's so obvious he doesn't hide his love. He's a very openly loving and caring and funny person.
Hmm.
Um, and always was straight with me. I like, and I remember growing up trying to call him, "All right, buddy," and he would say to me, "I'm not your buddy. I'm your dad." Um, and it's so cool to be at like the part of my life now where like, no, he's my buddy and my dad.
Mm.
Like we've grown into that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm so sorry that I lost
No,
where we.
no, you're totally good. So I was curious to know, and I do want to end up back at your dad in there
Yeah.
because I think it's a huge point. So I want that to be where this leads into.
Oh, but we were talking about like dating culture today, right?
Uh, well, so now I want to ask you, where did you shift from doing kind of these like friends with benefits things and all of that to where did things coalesce to Morgan?
Well, so I came back from DC, and went, started down that path again. But I was living with my parents, and I wasn't really liking the that person that I was being. I wasn't. Um, I guess like I was having a hard time. Like I was really starting to see that I was viewing women as a plaything and like not as like people.
Mm,
And I don't know what did that, what brought that around. But and I think also, let's see, it was 2018. So how many years ago is that? 6. So
about five-ish.
5. Well, yeah. Yeah. So it was March 2018. So probably 5-ish years ago. Let's see, I was 25. So I'm thinking then also, I'm 25. I'm back in Florida. Do I maybe I should, try to find somebody and settle down. And I actually was with a pastor for a little while. I dated a Methodist pastor,
Oh wow.
female Methodist pastor. Let me
Right.
clarify. Yes. And that was a wild experience because when I came back from DC, I was very into my Judaism heritage. And like looking at the possibility of like converting to Judaism and having like a full conversion, because I'm sure, as you know, Judaism is a matriarchal lineage. So
You said Judaism is?
yeah,
No, I don't think I
so
didn't know that.
Judaism
No.
is a matriarchal lineage. So if your mother isn't Jewish, you're not considered Jewish.
Okay.
And in the Jewish culture, Jewish men are not supposed to marry non-Jewish women. Like that is a big thing. Like, do not marry a non-Jewish woman because you won't have Jewish children.
Right.
Whereas a Jewish woman can marry a Jew or non-Jew, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because they'll still have Jewish children.
Right. Through her. Yeah.
Through
makes
her.
Sense.
And so I was very into my Judaism at the time. So like I was like, that I think caused, it was a very interesting relationship because there I was dating a Methodist pastor who I was in a very intimate relationship with, and yeah, having to like deal with the facts of like we're very intimate together, and yet on Sunday morning she's leaving the house and going to preach at church.
Man.
Yeah, and just kind of like I don't want to call it seeing the lack of conviction about that. I don't know. I guess like I don't want to call it hypocrisy, like because I don't want to call this person out. I don't know if they're gonna see this. I don't want to be mean to them. I don't want to like expose them. But like that, so it's,
I think if we're having a moment of honesty, most of the audience watching that hears that title and then hears, they'll probably do their own conclusions from it. You don't have to say it, but most people will.
And like, so it was like a very interesting relationship in general, just due to the fact that I was very much leaning into my Judaism at the time. She is very much a Methodist pastor. And so she ended up just like breaking up with me out of the blue one day. Like we were supposed to go to a basketball game, I think. Yeah, we were supposed to go to a Magic game. I bought tickets for us to go to a Magic game. And then she was like, "Oh, hey, do you mind just like meeting me out here? Like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to go to the game tonight. Like, we'll talk about it when we meet up." And I was like, "Okay." So we met up, and then like found out she was breaking up with me. I was like, "What is happening?
Wow.
Like, why? Like, what's the didn't really have a good reason. Like, we had been dating for 8 months or so, I think. And like I was pretty serious about it. Like when I've been in relationships, I go all in. When I'm in when it is a relationship, like I am all in. I am all about that person. Like I'm ready. Like let's go. And that really, I mean, I want to say that really hurt me, but then
Did she say if it was like a conviction thing or was it like
I don't, because they were a virgin before me. And so like
that is incredibly strange because at least if it was a conviction thing of like I could see that in a
like
certain way.
I don't feel convicted by the God about this. Like I don't feel like sexual immorality is that big of a deal or something like that. Or like, but I mean, it was also, it was a thing that we had a discussion about it though. And she was like, "I feel safe with you. I want this to happen with you."
And and I have also known of some girls to be like, I've heard stories of women that held themselves for X amount of time, didn't do it until they met a one guy, and then they were like, I feel safe, and then it ended up in marriage.
Yeah.
And so if she was going that route, that would make, but yeah, to just totally just 180 and just, hey, we're done. That is extremely strange.
Yeah, no, it was very weird.
Wow.
But funny enough, like a week later, I met Morgan.
Wow.
I think, or like I like started messaging more. Or okay, so Here's the deal of what happened. I believe I remember this correctly. Um, prior to, I might have that wrong. All right. Well, we matched on Bumble,
Mm-hmm.
and when I feel like we talked for a little bit, and then I just was like, I have ADHD. I forgot.
Mm.
And then I came back and like we talked again. We really started talking. And then like I remember I was playing online poker, and I was in a poker tournament
Mm-hmm.
online. And I was doing really well. So like it was already late. It was like 11 or something. And I'm just playing in this tournament. And eventually I'm like, can we move off of Bumble? Can I just text you? And she was like, you got to work harder. Okay. And so eventually got her number, and then we were talking and like just uh very much a early infatuation texting and stuff like
Mm.
that. And then we uh had set up a date for several days following. Like a few days later, I think it was like on a Wednesday that we had started talking, and like I'd set up a date for Sunday or something to go bowling. And at the end of the night, she texts me, and like we're texting, she's like, I just need to like have full disclosure with you, just so you know, like the reason I couldn't go out tomorrow is because like I'm going on another date with somebody else. And I was like, oh, okay, have fun. Or
Mm.
because she was going to Animal Kingdom with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next day I'm working, and then, she starts texting me, and then she's like, I'm in the bathroom texting you, blah, blah. I was like, this dude's going to think you're pooping. I texted her that. I said, this guy's going to think you're pooping. And she's like, no, there's a line. It'll be fine. And then when she got done there, she called me. Well, apparently she called her friend and said to her friend, like, hey, I think there's something special about this guy. I want, like, I don't want to wait until Sunday. And she was like, do not call him, whatever you do. And then what happened? She called me, and I was like, who the hell's calling me? Right? Wait, why are they calling me? And so I answered, and I'm like, oh, and then she was like, hey, so like, would you mind if we went out tonight instead of Saturday or Sunday? And I was
Wow.
like, sure.
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah,
I
no,
love
she
that.
definitely made like one of the first moves. And then uh,
Dude, hold on real quick. I just got to emphasize this. So, that's another thing that I tell guys is when you are dating a woman, if she's giving you this sort of like, oh yeah, I'm like, I like you, but I'm playing it cool, this type of deal, like that's one where you don't really give it too much attention. You don't invest too much in, but you should be when a woman shows that she is like enthusiastically going after you, and she's like willing to step out of the totally passive, basically uh princess in a plight mode where she's just waiting for Prince Charming, but now she's like, oh, there's Prince Charming, let me get out of the bed and run to him a bit. That's the sweet spot of where you want to be with your woman, was where she is now, doing the work to meet you at the bridge.
yeah. Well, so she had just come out of a time in her life where she was not making the right decisions, and spending time with men who didn't deserve her time, and had just recently been like, okay, I need to like start respecting myself more, and uh, you know, not have a sneaky link.
It's
And
important to know. Yeah.
yeah, and so and so we, on our second date, I told her I was in love with her. Because I was,
Hot dog.
I fell head over heels for her. It's in our vows. I told her that on the second date I loved her. I meant it then. I mean it now. Um, because like I saw the future. I saw the path. I saw the journey to get to that point. And also, I'm not a person who emphasizes emotional love. I emphasize choosing love.
Mm.
I don't believe that. Emotional love fades. Emotional love goes away. Attraction fades. That goes away. The reason arranged marriages work is because people choose to love the person.
Right.
You learn to love them. You accept them for all that they are. Like I very much like believe that you don't find your soulmate, you make your soulmate.
Mm-hmm.
Through like hard work together. Um and so like I like make a like definitive choice like when I wake up every day to love my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Love is a choice. You have to choose it each and every day if you want to be successful.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that we share that I think helped a lot. Is that uh, well, it also helps that we both really like each other and enjoy hanging out with each other and think each other are funny. Um, but yeah, what's funny is I told my wife that I was in love with her on our second date. She said, "Thank you." I said, "You're welcome." She said it later. It's fine. She still has not said it to this day. No. Yeah. So 5 years, babe. Really? uh, I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky to have met her. I will say.
So there is there's an interesting inflection point here, because when I have conversations with people, guys, different types of guys, I'll tell them, "Hey, man, if your girl has X red flags or X kind of history in it, run for the hills." And in this case, it sounds like there could have been some of those things that I typically would have warned against. The the exception that I then would say is, okay, if you're going to go that way, then one, this person see like not just like it, for the moment is just looking for like a comfort piece, like something to call hubby, have the wedding, have all attention on them, and just like a place to like be comfortable. But like this person is sick and tired of that. They are ready to do a full about face and they're ready to run into the rest of their life with someone that they're ready to be faithful to. Like, and typically this will show itself through signs of like giving up. For example, girls' nights out is typically a thing where single girlfriends might get together with married girlfriends and they'll go and they'll party. And then usually the single girlfriends or the girlfriends in dysfunctional relationships will peer pressure the other girls into making poor decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So the woman that's ready to do an about face will start to cut those friends off because she sees them as liabilities in some ways. She'll begin to integrate herself into his life and start to take on assimilating into what they've got going on more, and she will be enthusiastically after that guy.
Yeah. I think something that definitely had an impact on Morgan and I's relationship though was COVID. We started dating May 2019. And
Oh
so
wow.
before we were even together for a year, COVID happened. And also we're very non-traditional in the fact of for like probably the first 2 years of our relationship, we had spent no more than like 7 days apart. And
Wow.
we moved in together very early on. And like stayed at each other's places very early on. I'm not gonna hide that. Um and I mean I'm not gonna we were not like a pure couple or anything like that. Because Morgan and I just recently found our way back to the church after some time away. Um and so I would not say that God is necessarily has always been at the forefront of a relationship. Luckily, I believe that it is still blessed by Him and ordained by Him. Because I mean, we are both redeemed individuals. We are both members of the body. So I I have not seen anything from God to show me that he doesn't bless this relationship. And I mean, I
Right.
hope so at this point because it's not going anywhere. Um, but yeah, we were very non-traditional, for sure. I mean, I said I love you very early on, as we've seen. I very
That might
luckily.
be the most traditional part of you. Typically, Christian couples are like,
Yeah. No. And luckily I am married to a very sleepy girl, so like she doesn't really party. That's not part of her
Mm.
persona. Like we're going on a trip to Europe coming up here soon, and like we're going to Berlin, and I want to go to a rave in Berlin and just like experience the culture. And she's like, absolutely not. That is, I can guarantee you, there's one thing we're not doing in Berlin is going to a rave. She's like, you get to go to the rave themed sauna bathhouse we get to go to. So
Hot dog.
yeah,
That is
so
a combination of words I did
oh
not
yeah,
know went
yeah,
together.
yeah. No, it's wild. Um, so yeah, we're very non-traditional. And I was very lucky that I would say my wife's only red flags are family based.
Mm.
Like nothing of her. Like she's a very type A individual. She's very motivated, very driven, very caring. She's an eldest child, so like she also has like all of those aspects that come with being the oldest child of
Mhm.
but like also she's got a ton of anxiety, got a ton of
Mm.
those issues that I don't want to call them issues, those things that we deal with, which
I would say
is a
there are
lot.
tendencies of older children,
Yeah,
eldest
and that,
children.
but that are dealt with
Mhm.
pharmaceutically and very helpfully.
Mhm.
So, yeah, what's your next topic? I'm so sorry. My
No, you're
ADHD is
good.
running wild. It's just taking me
You're
all these
totally
different
good.
paths.
And I think it's, man, it's because like, so this is a super engaging conversation, I think, and just like the willingness you have to talk about these different things in a way that I don't think I've had, if I have had a guest, I've maybe had two or three guests that have been as willing to go into like the trenches of some of the things that they have dealt with, or even some of them are still dealing with. Um, so typically a conversation like this, my time format is about an hour 45. I feel
What are we at?
we're coming up on that, and I feel like we could
Oh, we
easily
can,
keep going.
however long you want this to go,
Um,
buddy. I'm here as long as you need.
man, I am so tempted, but I want to respect your time. I want to
We'll do a double podcast back to
we
back.
dude, don't tempt me.
Stay tuned for the top of the hour.
Oh man. Oh man. Oh man.
No, but for real, as long as you want to go, I'm here.
I we we may need to schedule something that we can go like a longer period
Do you
of
need me
it.
to reach out to my publicist to see if we can have time?
I think I need to reach out to my fundraisers because she'll be home soon.
Okay.
um, but I definitely do want to do a
Yeah,
longer episode.
absolutely. I'm down to talk about anything. I've got a world of experience that I'm happy to open up to anybody else.
Man. I did say I was gonna your dad. So as your dad being kind of your best friend, like you had a very positive piece to say about him. What was the wisdom he gave you in navigating your dating life, and what do you take from him that you try to implement into your marriage now?
It can all be gone in an instant, is what I learned. My dad has been married 3 times.
Oh.
So my mother was his second marriage. His first marriage ended tragically, where his wife was involved in a car accident and was
Mm.
brain damage beyond functionality, where she needed assisted care and stuff like that, and she just wasn't the same person.
Mhm.
And had to have that conversation with her dad of like, I'm happy to help you all with like living expenses for her, but like they told him like you gotta move on and find somebody else. Like this isn't gonna work anymore.
Mm.
And so like him having to go through that. My dad's experienced a lot of trauma in his life. And also my dad has Asperger's. My dad is
Hmm.
very high
Wow.
functioning autistic.
Oh.
And he, am I in to use a bad term, my dad is my idol. Um, my what's the word? Who I want to model myself, my role model.
Mhm.
He's taught me that uh, you just have to keep moving. That the world is going to throw a lot of shit at you, and you can't really let it stop you. Um, I mean, my father's had a lot of death around him his life. I mean, his father died when he was 19. And his father was his best friend. Also, wild stories about my grandfather. He was in prison for 20 years and
Oh snap!
was in prison for murder. It's crazy.
Grandpapa was a mafia member.
He was in New York. Yeah, in
Holy
the
smoke.
Lower East Side of New York, and he got popped with a murder charge,
Oh
and then
wow.
moved to Florida and was going to connect back up with some of his connections in Tampa, but decided to stay in Orlando. Yeah, no, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. And
That's
it was my
crazy.
grandmother's second marriage when she had my dad. My dad has a brother that he just met that he had no idea existed, that was
What?
born and then put up for adoption immediately, between from his mom and a different man.
Hot
But
dog.
and then right after that happened, my grandmother met my grandfather and got married to my grandfather, and they had my father like within 2 years of like her having that other kid. And he just met him this year. It's wild. Just there's my father is probably one of the most interesting men I know. His life is just crazy. And but yeah, he's I feel like yeah, he's just taught me that you gotta keep like life will move on. Life will like things will get better eventually. Life will improve. Um, and it also helps that like he enjoys living vicariously through me. I know, because there are things that I like. He has a really hard time talking to new people or anything like that. Whereas me, I can talk to anybody about anything for any amount of time. That's fine. I'm happy to. Um, and so like when I lived in DC, he like lived vicariously through me. My first time going to a strip club, texting him about going into the strip club and him being like, "Have fun, bud." And then him trying to get a hold of me like for the next 45 minutes because he knows I'm going to spend all of my
Oh,
money, and him not being able to get a hold of me. Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, my father taught me a lot about how to love someone regardless of gender, like how to truly care for a person. Um, and that is just being there. Be there, be present, be interested in them, care about like what they're involved in. If you don't care, pretend that you care.
smart.
Um, and just I think that he wants to do for me what his dad was never able to do for him, which was be around in his adulthood, be around to be the person that I can ask questions to, that I can say,
Mm.
"Dad, why the hell do I owe $2,000 in tax? What happened? How does that happen?" And him having to be like, "Oh yeah, you got to go do this and this and this. Oops." Um, I will never have enough good things to say about my dad.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Because we didn't have a good relationship for a number of years. When my parents split, I was like just force fed a whole bunch of crap about him.
Hmm.
My step, I and my stepdad used to tell me I came from bad sperm,
Wow.
and so like I was just fed that like my father was a loser and that he didn't support me. Like he wouldn't pay his child support and do stuff like that. Meanwhile, like now as a male like adult, I realize how expensive child support is,
Mm.
and that he could barely support himself and then support me on top of that. And
Mm.
then my mother moved me 2 hours away so
Mm.
that and then put me in baseball that was on Saturdays. when his weekends were supposed to be Friday through Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And so he would have to he would have to lose a day of his visitation, drive 2 hours to watch me play my game, pick me up, drive 2 hours back to Orlando. We'd get home. We'd get there around 5, 6, sit down, eat dinner, hang out for a little while, wake up Sunday morning, he'd have to drive me back 2 hours. So I would spend
8 hours in the car.
Well, yeah. He would spend 8 hours in the car.
Oh yeah.
And to spend total with me like 12, 13 hours total.
Wow.
Every other week. You know, to see your kid 12 hours every other week and just trying to like survive. Like, and so, you know, once I was independent, I really started to want to make up for that time that I lost with my dad, which I'm so happy I did. But yeah, that divorce sucks. Don't do it. 0 out of 0 recommend.
And I think, man, it's so cool how you recognize that as you became an older man. And and I agree. My father and I had a strained relationship for many years, and a lot of the same stuff, force fed, all of these different things from uncles, all the people from mom's side, and things like that. And then coming to find similar as an adult, just like, well, this is the part of the story you were never told. And, you know, like now that you're a man, consider these things. And, you know, there are still some things that I hold and I'm like, that was still you, Pops. But there are some things now that I see like, oh, like I get not wanting to, you know, finance a lifestyle, especially when incomes might be forged and things being inflated beyond what they really are, about, you know, just all of that stuff. Now I now understand it, and I see the resistance and why some of it makes sense, even while some of it might not have. So I appreciate just being able to get a understanding for appreciation of fathers, especially from a divorce scenario where there was strain.
Yeah.
So as we prepare to bring this to a close, much against my desire, we're going to transition to the closing segment. So, Noah, what are 3 things from this conversation? What are 3 things from this conversation that you want to depart the audience with?
Oh man. That's a great question. All right. So, which is funny because like I knew this question was coming and like I'm not prepared at all. I would say keep moving forward. Definitely like just a lot of bad things are going to happen to you in your life. Like whether they have happened yet or not, like you got a lot of life left to go and a lot of bad things are going to happen, but a lot of good things are going to happen also. And so don't let the bad outpace the good. I would say that love is a choice. You have to choose to enter into, if you're in a relationship, you have to choose to enter into it, willing to accept that person and coming at them as their teammate and their partner. And always remembering that even if your partner is criticizing you, maybe it's because they're trying to help you. They're your partner. You guys are on the same team. Well, at least if you're married, that's how it's supposed to be. And then we didn't really talk about this much, but communication, I think, is the biggest thing that you can have in a relationship. My wife and I just got in a fight last week. She's going through a whole bunch of stuff in her family. Then it's gonna sound ridiculous, but like I didn't move the laundry that I had from like next to the bed like 6 inches into the basket, and then like I didn't close my dresser drawers. And like, so it sounds ridiculous, but what that was to her is me saying to her that the things that she cares about are not a priority to me, and therefore she is not a priority to me.
Mhm.
And that's what she heard through those actions, which were escalated because of the emotional stress and trauma she was already going through in another situation. Um, and so I come out and she's upset, she's mad, and I don't know why. She just is all pissy. And I just think to myself, well, I don't know what the hell I did, but apparently I did something. So, we're walking out to the car and I say to her, well, I say, I know that something's wrong and we say that communication is key. I need you to communicate with me right now, please. Because like I have no idea what's happening, but I know that something's wrong. And her saying, I don't want to fight right now. And me saying, I'm sorry, I think we need to fight about this, whatever this is, because you're not fun to be around right now. I straight said to my wife, I'm not having fun hanging out with you at the moment, and you're not really a good time to be around right now. So can we figure this out, please? Because this is not a good time for anybody. And it didn't make her happy, but it got us to fight, which is what we needed. Don't be here. That's another thing. Don't be afraid to fight. Fighting is because you care. Don't think that because you're not fighting, it's a good thing. Not fighting is not always a good thing, because it either means that the person doesn't trust that they can have a disagreement with you rationally, and they bottle everything up, or they're not that invested, so it's not enough of a problem for them to actually worry about. Fighting is not a bad thing. I don't think. I think fighting is necessary to communicate out your frustrations sometimes, especially if you're married. You're going to be with them forever. Don't let things simmer until you resent them for it, because they don't even know that something's wrong. Women, communicate with your men. Men, don't be afraid to say to your woman, "Hey, I can tell something's wrong. I just need you to be honest with me for a minute. Just tell me what's wrong so that I can work on fixing it, because I can't make it any better unless you tell me what's going on." And if she won't tell you what's going on, there's your red flag. Find a woman who'll talk to you. This communication's key. If you don't communicate, you don't have a real relationship.
Man, that's such a great point. If we were in another episode, I would jump into that with more conversation.
Okay.
But
Well, we'll save it for the next one.
Right.
We'll come back on that day.
And then was that two pieces? Or was that the third one?
I have no idea. It's a lot of advice. I guess my third piece of advice: find a mentor. I didn't talk about that today. I know that we're talking about dating and stuff, but just in general, find somebody who's willing to invest their time into you to teach you their craft. Whether that's being a good communicator, whether that's being a good salesperson, whether that's being a good podcaster, whatever that is, find somebody who has the time and energy to pour into you and bring their knowledge to you, because it will pay off for you tenfold down the line. I didn't, there's so much of me that didn't need college because I had a good mentor that taught me everything I needed to know about project management and got me to be a good communicator, got me to understand corporate world and how that works, because I had somebody that was willing to invest their time and energy into me. Shout out, Meg. You were the best.
Man, and that is another great jumping off point there too. Yeah, we'll definitely have to get you back on it.
Okay.
For sure. Although I know your schedule can be
I'm a very quasi busy man. I'm not actually busy. I just like everybody to think I am.
Amazing. So at this point, what are 3 questions that you have that you would like to ask of me? I will answer them completely honestly.
All right. Do you feel like podcasting is a way for you to introduce yourself to other people and like get to understand them more quickly than if you had actually built a relationship? And this is not meant to be accusatory. I realize at the end it sounds that way. This is honestly just a genuine question.
So I think podcasting for me, trying to think about could you ask it one more time?
Yeah. So is your podcast for you a way for you to get deeper knowledge faster on somebody than like building a relationship?
Okay. So I would say that that's such an interesting way to look at because I've never looked at it from that side of it. So okay, so I'll tell you what it is for me. Like podcasting for me is my way to contribute the experience and wisdom of all men to anyone that is seeking an extra source of guidance or an extra piece of wisdom. And then, so that is, as far as the audience portion of it. But then, as far as the person to person, it is my personal opportunity to, like, one of my resolutions with this podcast is I want to pray over 100,000 unique guests on this podcast.
I win.
Just throughout the whole life. I mean, within 10 years, I would love
You do it every day. You got 365. We got 100 years.
I am significantly behind schedule. I'm at I think I'm at less than 30.
All right. Well, we only got 99,970 to go. Don't worry. You got one today. So 969.
But I mean, it definitely is a way for me to be able to, yeah, I guess, kind of cut through all of the busyness that people have. Cause like, I think people desire to form relationships and to meet each other and all these things. Um, it can just be so easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm busy with this, or maybe we can do something here, and with this right here, for me, it forces me to make connection with people because it's part of my work. But this podcast is just the full manifestation of what my natural talents are, my natural skills, as far as I've been told at least that I can speak well and that I carry a good voice for radio. And then also,
You got to get off video, man.
I know, right? Squandering it. And then also, I have an innate love to be able to go and just meet new, different, and random people and hear about them and their stories and their experiences. I spend so much time on my own time listening to podcasts, but also I just love, at a certain point in life, I was super introverted. And so I would challenge myself and say, I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna meet somebody at Walmart. I'm gonna go out and meet somebody at Publix. And so it started off uncomfortable, but now it's a thing that has become such a practice thing that I actually enjoy it. And so this podcast facilitates a mission. It facilitates, honestly, it's like a personal pleasure of mine getting to know people. If I wasn't going out and meeting people, I was having discussions and arguments on Facebook and, all the social medias.
Yeah.
And so I just love getting into people's mind and understanding their passions and their hearts about things. And this is a great format for that, I think.
If your podcast is never financially profitable, is it still successful?
To me, yes.
Okay. I guess basically the question is, how do you measure success?
Okay. So I would measure success based on I can't lie and say that it's only one bucket. I do have two separate buckets. There is the format of success where it allows me to bring in an income, support a family, eventually allow my wife to, if she so desires, get off of it. That would be my biblical role success. As far as my personal mission, what I think God has blessed me with, the ability, talents, and all of that, I think it's a success as long as I put everything I mentioned mission wise ahead of my own desires for, seeing it get up into the top 10 podcasts by indulging in just, a bunch of e-girls that I put in hot tubs and have conversations with on this thing.
Invite me back for that episode.
You and Morgan, right?
Crap. Yeah, absolutely. She'll love it. All right. I guess my last question is, do you think the world is a better place with or without social media? In its current state?
If I'm going off of stats and rates, and I have to say it's a worse world with it.
I feel like our world is so much worse since social media came out. I feel
Yeah.
like maybe everybody's nostalgia for their childhood is that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even like pre-Instagram, like high school pre-Instagram,
Right.
like I mean, at most you had a MySpace. But like it was nowhere like it is today. Like it was nothing like that.
Well, even when we talk about MySpace, I can remember I lost several friends from MySpace because we got mad at each other over
Top friend list.
top friend list. How do you have that person in front of me? What the heck, dude? Or what the heck, girl?
Yeah.
You know?
You know what I remember? I remember putting music on my page, a song
Absolutely.
called Kelsey, because I had a really big crush on this girl in my class named Kelsey, and my hope was like, oh, maybe she'll come to my page and see that the song is after her. Kids don't do that anymore. I I have a couple things. I believe we need to bring back bullying. Bullying is a net positive. It it will make you a better adult. If you get people to tell you what is wrong with you to your face as a child, you will stop doing it. It will make you a better adult. And number two, we need to bring back like cringy alternative music. Parents just don't understand because kids don't have an outlet for those kind of feelings anymore. I feel like of like grunge,
Your Evanescence,
like your
Linkin Park.
your My Chemical Romance,
Absolutely.
your kids that have nothing like that anymore to pour into. It's all mumble rap.
Yeah.
And not to sound like
Yeah.
a boomer, but or like a millennial, but yeah.
So,
But yeah, the kids miss that outlet today, and I think that social media and the push for kids to grow up faster will be one of the worst things that have happened to the society.
yeah, I would completely agree. I think we see it in everywhere from as basic as classrooms, teachers being like, I can't handle your terrible kids, all the way to young adults being like, I am not prepared for this world because they were coddled so much. They were so taken care of against having to deal with the different trials. They're given all these things that they should understand that they're not allowed to have or be good in.
Oh, and the kids are so entitled in the workforce now. Of like, I saw a thing the other day of somebody was like that they got an 8 a.m. meeting and they were like said, sorry, I have a workout class at that time. I'm not going to be able to make it. And I was like, who the hell are you talking? I could never talk to my boss. Like I could never say anything like that to my boss. It would, and maybe it's just like, I feel like in our generation, we've gone through COVID where everybody lost their job. We've gone through, like, I've lost my job multiple times over the course of my career to the point now that I'm so traumatized about losing a job that I will do anything that my company asks me to do. I am very lucky that I work for a great company that doesn't ask me to do bad things or doesn't like the sky's never falling, nothing's an emergency. But yeah, no. I realize that we're at the end of time for your podcast, and I keep pushing it forward. I'll let you wrap it up.
Oh man, no, man, it'd be so easy to. We'll do it again.
Yes,
we'll do it again.
absolutely. Don't forget to save this one.
The audience will never know.
No, they'll never know.
At this point, what is something, and this can be a conviction of yours, something God is moving in your heart that you feel He wants you to improve on. This can be something that you're celebrating, that you're excited about. This can be something you're anxious about. But what is something that I and the audience can pray over you about?
All right. I'll do it nice and easy. My wife and I are in discussions about starting a family and what that's going to look like, what that means for our finances, what that means for our lifestyle. Are we ready? Are we ever ready? And so there's a lot of anxiety around it, a lot of joy and excitement, but also, fear of the unknown. I've always wanted to be a dad, but the more real it becomes, the more scary it gets. I've always, I, at the same time though, I've always saw myself owning a home before I have a kid. I don't want to have to go through the process of buying a home while trying to pay for a child.
Mm.
I'm so scared that we're gonna have a kid and suddenly all of our finances are not gonna work out anymore because a kid costs like $100,000 over the course of its life. I don't know that I have an extra $100,000 over the course of my life for a kid.
That sounds under.
Well, I'm
It's
sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. And they go to
Especially if we
public, everything.
like-
No, especially like I have desires of sending my kids to private school.
Oh, no.
Which it's funny because my wife's a public school teacher, but
Mm.
I say at the same time I say to her, look at the kids you have to deal with every day. You want our kid hanging out with them? You want that? No, but she says no. They're just gonna make. We send them to private school. They're just gonna have better drugs. And I was like, I mean, you're not wrong, but we just tell them not to do them.
Cleaner cuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want them to have more potent stuff. What's wrong with you? That's so mean.
Oh man.
At least let us get a good value for our money. No, it's I would say yeah, we're praying about starting a family. There's a lot that goes into that, a lot to consider. And so we are just kind of figuring that out. And then probably I would also like to have a more involved prayer life. My wife and I don't really have a big prayer life. I know that's a big focus that we're currently going through at our church is about prayer. And I'll be honest, I don't have a robust prayer life. I've never had really a robust prayer life. I just feel like the man and I are kind of linked.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it's never prayer. Prayer wasn't something I was raised with.
Mhm.
Prayer wasn't something we really did. I mean, even in Catholicism, it's very regimented prayers. You don't say your own prayer. You have
Mhm.
specific prayers that you pray. So the idea of praying for intercessions on things is very new to me.
Mhm.
I mean, I say new, like in the last 10 years, I've been exposed to the idea of that. It's definitely something I could be better in, but I mean, if other people are praying about that for me, maybe it'll kick something.
For sure, for sure. All right, let's hit it.
All right.
So at this time, audience, please join me in prayer for Noah. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time of fellowship where Noah and I have been able to come together to be able to talk more, come to understand more about each other, to be able to hear some stories about each other. And thank you for the audience that has been able to join us, everyone that watches this back, and everyone that is able to both be entertained by this and also to learn something from this and to be able to see the hearts that Noah and myself have for various ideas. Lord, we want to over that as he and Morgan contemplate the near future of what it would look like to start a family, Lord. We just pray that you would give them any sign and any wonder to be able to confidently move forward, and that you would affirm these ideas, these decisions, and that you would bless the process of them being able to begin their family, Lord. We know that there's a lot to consider, so many things to be worried about and anxious about, and things to wonder about with school and media. And we just pray, Lord, that as we're told in Matthew 6:34, that they can not worry about the troubles of tomorrow, for the days of tomorrow will handle themselves, and that you would allow them just to handle every moment, every decision in its time, in its day, and that they would allow your Holy Spirit to guide the both of them in that process. We would also like to pray, Lord, for the prayer life of Morgan and Noah, in that as they are seeking to work more in that you would allow them some way to be exposed as much as possible to whether it's good content or those that are wanting to join with them in it, Lord. But we just pray that even as there's been an experience of only praying through someone else doing it for them, that you would spark a fire and a revival in their hearts and their souls that would drive each of them independently and as an entire unit together, especially as they contemplate starting a family and being able to have a robust prayer life that they can teach onto their child or their children, and that this can be something that they shape with your Holy Spirit guiding them, Lord. And so we just pray that you affirm this new desire, this habit of prayer in their lives, and help to build them up in it and motivate them and affirm them in it so that they can draw closer to you as an entire family, Lord. We pray that the rest of this day can be good to Noah, be good to Morgan, and that the audience can enjoy it. We pray that everyone will be safe tonight as we go about this evening time. And we just pray for more continued fellowship with each other and to be able to make plans, hopefully sooner than later, with each other. We thank you, Lord, for being able to come together in this time and to be able to speak with open hearts about subjects that can be touchy. Um, but we're willing to do it to glorify you, Lord, to show how you have worked in our lives and the wonders that you can do for men that choose to buy into you more. We give you all these thanks and praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Right. Thank you, everyone who has joined in on us. This is our first 2-hour episode in quite a while. Noah broke our streak. And it also happened because, we've been recording in the apartment the past couple of episodes. My typical spot, there's been some shenanigans going on around it. So, but I'm not going to lie, I kind of like it more, besides the echo that you guys might have been hearing while we were discussing. But thank you guys so much. Noah, you have been more than an awesome guest on the
I
podcast.
appreciate it. Happy to come back.
Oh, yes. And besides that, you guys have a safe Friday night. Enjoy it. Keep God at the center of your night as you go out celebrating, having fun, maybe doing a little partying. Just make sure you think, what would Jesus do right now? Thank you guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Inspired Challenge Podcast. Take care. And that's a wrap.
Nice.